Welcome to Talking Business. In this series of podcasts, I hope to give you some ideas based on over 40 years working for various organisations in industry. In Series 1 of Talking Business, we're going to look at your big project, avoiding the mistakes of others. This is the project that is going to change the face of your organisation. Episode 7. Listen. You could say that I should have done this talk earlier. I should have explained the importance of listening at an earlier stage. There were other things that needed talking about first, so I put it here because I think it's still of value. Now, listening is probably one of the hardest parts of the whole project. You, the senior manager, are sponsoring the project. You are used to people listening to you. Therefore, you believe that your staff should be listening to you rather than you listening to them. You're high up in the organisation. You therefore think you must know everything there is to know. Very few people who are high up in an organisation actually know the detail of how their organisation works. Very few people high up in the organisation know how to do many of the jobs that make the organisation tick over on a daily basis. And to be honest, if you're at the top of your organisation and you're involving yourself in everyday detail, there's something wrong with your organisation, because you should be looking to where your organisation is going in the future. There is one very important thing, though, that you must understand. You must understand that those in your organisation who say things are different in this country, first of all, aren't good listeners. Secondly, it usually isn't true, so they're liars. Thirdly, they don't like change. And you need to question whether those people should be in your organisation. I hope you listened, and I hope the rest of your organisation listened during the development of best practice. This was the best opportunity for your individual businesses to help in the identification and definition of best practice. I hope your core team listened, because no matter how good your core team is, they don't know everything. A good core team member will be learning at least one new thing every day. Your project team, both the business and IT, must listen to your best practice team when you define the scope. They must listen to your best practice team as the project goes along. And most importantly, you need to listen to those who've been through this before. That will be your consultants for an external view. And during implementation, Country B must listen to the experience of Country A so that the lessons are learnt, not wasted. Sadly, this is one of the biggest problems with many of the projects that I have been involved in. People don't listen to those who've been down the road before them. Your local businesses must listen carefully. They must listen so that they understand that this supports the new way, the way that we brought through best practice. They must listen to understand that the new system that they're receiving makes the way easier to operate in line with best practice. They must listen to the why we are doing things in this way. They must listen to the how to do it using the new system. There must be absolutely no deviations. Now, I'd like to look at a project that I had an involvement in between 2001 and 2002. And this was to put in an SAP business warehouse into the United States. It was for a global chemical company with a large customer base, and the purpose was to move from Sales Information System, SIS reporting, to using the SAP Business Warehouse, or SAP BW, for reporting in every country. The solution was to implement SAP Business Warehouse based on requirements for reporting in line with global best practice. It was bad. First of all, I was the global representative and I didn't have the required street cred in the United States. The project team was not interested in the global angle. The project team believed that they knew better than anyone who had a global view. The United States business had had many years of being completely independent and doing things the way that they wanted to. And therefore you would have had to have incredible street cred in the United States for them to have listened to you. I failed. In addition, they had many issues with their larger SAP project. Many of those issues were visible to the rest of us, those who'd gone before, early on. Sadly, they refused to talk to us. So why did everything go wrong? Not only Business Warehouse, but their project. Well, they were isolationist. Why should they ask anyone else? After all, they knew best. Sadly, they didn't. They had a lack of knowledge, and their lack of knowledge included the fact that this was a template being used by other businesses, and changes that they made affected others negatively because they didn't talk to those who'd gone before. They didn't ask what the effect of doing what they were planning to do would have. Things changed overnight. Customers in the countries that had been running successfully under SAP for a number of years suddenly started to see errors. They had some revolutionary new ideas, particularly in the field of pricing, but they didn't discuss them with anyone else. And ultimately, they were completely unsuited to the business. They were making assumptions based on a textbook. And unfortunately, the textbook wasn't written for an organisation that had been in business for over 90 years. The textbook ideas that they put in might have worked with a new startup. The textbook did not consider an organisation that had thousands of individual contracts with individual terms for their customers, meaning that every customer had an individual deal. They misused data fields. This led to confusion, particularly when people were trying to help them out of the mess and found that the data fields didn't mean what they should have meant. And it also led them to a suboptimal operating mode. They had a macho attitude, even when disaster arrived. Well, yes, it's all going wrong. It's a big disaster. Our customers are complaining. Let's continue rolling out and upset more people. And afterwards, they were in denial. And even when they weren't in a denial, they were blinkered. I was called over to advise on some aspects and told, "We're in a mess. What should we do?" Please remember, we can't change anything. My answer to that was that they were somewhat limiting my options for suggestions. Listening is incredibly important. And when people raise things, when people say, "Hey, I've got an idea," or "I'm thinking about something," you need to stop. You need to look at what they're doing. You need to listen. Those non-gated crossings on the railway are so truthful, they save lives. And by you stopping, looking and listening, you'll save your project and you may have success. Talking Business is produced by the Mr. T Podcast Studio in association with SFRD Services Limited. Thank you for listening. The next episode will be in 2 weeks' time.